Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Roofing Contractor Walls and Ceilings Legal Insights video. I'm Roofing Contractor Editor Art Eisner, and I'm glad to be joined today by Trent Cotney, CEO of Cotney Attorneys and Consultants. Trent, as always, I'm glad you're here to walk us through some of the biggest issues facing the roofing and construction industries. How you doing?
Doing great, Art. I tell you, man, it's always good to see you. And, it's just amazing how much happens in just a 2-week time. It's incredible the amount of news and stuff that's affecting the industry now. So really looking forward to having some great discussion.
Yeah, let's jump right in. No shortage of news. You're correct. One thing that's happened since we last spoke, the U.S. Department of Labor has withdrawn the independent contractor rule. This is something you and I have both typed a lot of words about, read a lot of words about. What do contractors need to know now?
Sure. So not a huge surprise here in that they had already kind of signaled, the Biden administration had signaled that they were going to cut against what the Trump administration had done. And just as a refresher to our listeners, there was what was known as the economic realities test, which was a 7-factor test that kind of went in to determine whether or not one of your subcontractors is really properly classified or they're just your employees and you're not calling them the right thing. So the Trump administration tried to narrow that down to 2 factors. The Biden administration said, no, I'm not going to do that. And this on May 5th, they made it official and said, no, I'm not going to do that. So what I'm more interested in is kind of seeing what the future looks like here. They have definitely indicated that misclassification is a top priority. So I would expect additional guidance to come out with regard to interpretations on misclassification. And you can also expect some additional rulemaking as it relates to that. So for the listeners out there, stay tuned. There's going to be more of this, and this will continue to be a hot button issue for the years to come.
Trent, this was kind of discussed as a workers' rights issue by proponents primarily. Is that what's going on here? And is this tied at all into what we also saw, maybe not so much coincidentally, the rise in the minimum wage?
Mm-hmm. So yes, that is the spin that the Biden administration has been putting on it, and I do think it is tied to a lot of their other regulatory and legislative initiatives, which include things like increasing the minimum wage, the PRO Act, which we've discussed on past episodes, and I think that is one way to spin it. I tend to be the opposite perception, which is this is going to be more difficult for contractors. I do agree that there is an issue with regard to misclassification, but I'm also concerned about overextension. I don't want the regulations and the rulemaking to be so extensive that it becomes a very, very high threshold to meet to hire any subcontractor. I think you run the risk of potentially chilling additional business and subbing out work because of the potential problems that may arise from it.
All right, one other factor that came out of Washington, additional H-2B seasonal visas will be granted. What does that mean for the roofing industry?
So from what I saw on the news, there's going to be another 22,000 potential openings for non-agricultural workforce. And it is a way, there has been at least 6,000 of those 22,000 designated for Honduras, Guatemala, Central American countries. So it does give the potential opportunity for the construction industry, and in particular roofing, as well as the walls and ceilings industry, to potentially get access to some additional workers. My issue, Art, has been the issue since day one, is H-2B is fine, but it is seasonal. It requires a look ahead of almost about a year, and it's just not as nimble of a policy that we need. What I would really like to see from the Biden administration is some reworking of our temporary status, temporary protected status, and other things that make it easier and more nimble for contractors to retain workers when needed and to not when they don't, right? And my concern with H-2B is I think it's just it's too much bureaucracy and red tape to really be an effective tool to solve our labor problems. But any news is good news, and I'll take it, right?
Right. So more possible workers there, but not anywhere near a permanent fix or something that really the roofing industry has been lobbying for the last few years. One more topic coming out of Washington, worth mentioning. Tax day is fast approaching. We've talked about this subject before. Any other pointers worth noting for contractors? Things they definitely want to get done here in the 11th hour.
Yeah, so we have been, we get all kinds of calls from contractors on a daily basis. Anything and everything you could imagine, we get asked, and it keeps me frosty, and that's important. So, but one of the things we get asked a lot is how to treat, Paycheck Protection Program loan funds on this tax return, because many of you that receive PPP funding, if there's a difference between how you treat it if it's been forgiven. Okay, and you really want to talk to your tax professional about how to deal with it, because at that point it basically becomes income. You can set off expenses and deductions like you would normally, but how you report it changes from the standpoint of being a loan to when it's forgiven. And you need to accurately reflect that on your tax return, because there could potentially be a big issue if you have to retroactively go back and you haven't properly allocated the things that needed to correspond with the Paycheck Protection Program funds. So just be aware of that. That is one thing that we're kind of cluing in on. Obviously, all the standards apply: mileage deductions, meals and entertainment, all that stuff. That's great. You guys all know that. But the PPP stuff and the tax credits for people that have taken time off for coronavirus, things like that. Don't forget that stuff, because now is the time to go ahead and try to get it.
Right, and I suppose they should also be starting to log those same factors for next year's taxes, right? If they're not already doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I think we all learned from COVID-19 is preparation is key. Those contractors that were already, technologically ready, they were at the head of the pack, tip of the spear. So take the time now. Don't wait till November, December, or even, March or April of next year to figure out what your taxes are. Spend some time now. I know personally, I had a conversation with my accountant, and I said, "Look, brother, I know you helped me out, and we got a great accounting team here, but I'm getting you on quarterly. I need you to. I don't want to be doing all this stuff. It's way too complicated." So, I've told you before, Art. I count on my fingers, so I definitely need some help there.
I hear you. You were told there would be no math, right?
Right. I don't know. Someone tricked me.
Right.
So.
Me as well. Well, let's turn to some fun stuff. Trent, you're at it again, innovating your business. Tell us about your new roofing estimating training program.
So really excited about this, and just to give everybody some background, we looked out at the industry, and obviously, there are a lot of great training programs, NRC and its pro certification program, unparalleled. But when it comes to estimating, there was just a big gap. There was nothing really specific for roofing that was out there to train people. And what we did, John Kinney, who heads up our consulting group, he's got 45 years experience in the industry, was chief estimator. He really knows his stuff when it comes to that. So through Cotney Consulting, we developed a very robust program. It is for training for people that are new to the industry, or a roofer that wants to learn estimating, or someone that just wants to bone up on it. By the time you are through with this course, and there are very well done professional videos that walk you through every aspect, roofing specific, you'll be at an intermediate level. And we're really excited. We're coming out with an advanced course in June. We have a certification track, both an accredited program that requires at least 2 years of experience as an estimator, and then a certification program that requires 5 years, work as an estimator. But this is a place where we think it is so incredibly complicated. And again, I count on my fingers. I leave all this stuff to John. But there is a big need in the industry to train people to bid correctly. If we've learned anything over the last few months, is that if you didn't bid your projects right, the material shortages and the material price increases have just absolutely destroyed you, because you probably didn't have a lot of net profit to begin with. Now you don't have any. So absolutely very, very excited about this. I encourage everybody. We've got some great promo videos on there. Just really, really impressed. When I saw the finished product, I'm ready to become an estimator. Let me say that. I watched the whole thing, and I'm like, if it just wasn't for the math thing, sign me up. I think I picked the wrong profession. So
And so how is it accessible to contractors out there?
Sure. So we have, you can, check our websites, go to social media. We have it on Shopify for download. You just download it and then you have access. You get a certificate at the end that shows that what it's done. It's in 10 different installments. You can go through and it paces you and make sure that you've taken the course. There's questions that you've got to answer. It is a legitimate course that goes through the specifics of roofing estimating. So really recommend it. Sales have been great. We've only had it up for a week or so, and I couldn't be more pleased with the sales numbers. So I think the market's speaking. I think there's definitely a need, and I look forward to our future courses that are coming out.
Nice. Well, your timing on this probably couldn't be better, as you alluded to, given to the supply shortages that the industry is feeling. Um, any update on the supply disruption, and what are you hearing from contractors this week?
So absolutely. One thing that I'd like the listeners to kind of pay attention to is I don't think this is an isolated event. I don't think this will be over in the summer. I think it will continue. I'd be surprised if it doesn't continue throughout 2021. One of the things that we've really worked on, and Art, I got to tell you, I'm working on this issue 24 hours a day. We have, I've spoken on it on podcasts, and I can't do any more. I'm just cranking out constant information on it because we're always getting calls. And there's been such a big focus on what to do when you get a contract, what provisions to put in, that oftentimes, especially, this may be useful for the listeners, is how do you deal with a contract that's already executed, right? There's no additional consideration there. You're just going to your customer and saying, hey, can you hook me up with another 50K? How do you do that? And what I'd like to do is just give a couple of brief tips to the listeners to kind of outline some of that stuff. One of the things that you want to do, first off, is look at your contract, look at the delays provision, because one of the things that we've been arguing is that because of delays previously on the project related to COVID-19, it forced us into this supply shortage era. I argue that all the time with regard to rainy season here in Florida. So you say, because you delayed me in April, I now got to do work in July and I need a whole bunch more money and time, right? So come up with an argument like that. The next thing that I'd recommend is really fly spec your contract to see if there's anything in the force majeure provision that says that unavailability of materials is an act of God. Okay, some of the provisions include that. And I told you I was going to give you two. Art, just because it's you, I'm going to give you a third one. Okay.
Bonus.
So the third one that I would really recommend is submit a change order or a claim, whatever you can under your contract, and advocate. Okay, you want to put your best foot forward. A lot of times I get told, well, I'm just going to go to the customer, I'm going to fall on my sword and beg for forgiveness. And what I always like to do in negotiating is come from a position of strength. So I submit a claim. I say that this is unforeseeable. It is an act of God. Nobody expected this. Because of this, I'm entitled to more money. Then what I do is I pick up the phone and I say, hey, you're going to get this. I'm just giving you a heads up. Let's figure out a way to solve this. Okay, that tends to put you in a better position for negotiating than just calling up the phone and saying, hey, I'm really sorry, but what can we do here? In which case, that general contractor or that owner is just going to hang up the phone and go on to the next problem. So those are three things. I've got about 10 more, but otherwise we'd be here all day. So I'm constantly trying to evolve and figure out other ways to get around this problem because it's going to continue to be a problem for the rest of the year.
Right, a conversation that's going to continue to evolve. I did want to ask you about an update on something we spoke about last time regarding Florida Senate Bill 76 and the insurance reform that's being proposed in your home state. Any updates there?
Absolutely. So very proud of our lobbying team. We all worked very, very hard on this. We are literally up into the wee hours of the night. This came down to the last day of the legislative session, literally the last hours. And there were two bills that we were all concerned about, Senate Bill 76 and House Bill 305. And we're pleased to report that any of the roofing specific language was pretty much removed from them. So we were really concerned because they had a depreciating schedule that would say once your roof is over 10 years old, that you could only get so much money from insurance. There were some things that survived about soliciting, like for example, you can't offer incentives or say you're going to get a free roof. But at the end of the day, we were very excited about the results. And I got to tell you, I was biting my nails up to the end there because you never know what's going to happen. Right? You never know until you get in there, and you don't know who's going to book for what or what they're going to do. But a lot of horse trading, a lot of great advocacy by our lobbyists in the industry, and just very thankful things ended up going well. But there's other stuff on the horizon. You know, Illinois's got a House bill right now that's very similar. It's always important to make sure that you're staying in tune with your state and your federal governments to see what legislation impacts you.
Right. Clearly, the insurance industry is not done
Not
trying
done.
trying to navigate
Absolutely,
through that.
absolutely. And there's a fine line there. You know, look, there are some bad actors out there, and we do need to do stuff to help police that. But I'm also I believe that there's a line there, right? I believe there's a line between doing stuff that's good for the industry, both from a roofing contractor standpoint and from an insurance standpoint. There's a way to meet in the middle. So one of the things that we're trying to do now, Hart, is figure out a way during the downtime to have some meaningful conversations with some of these legislators and with the insurance industry to figure out how do we bridge that gap, you know, and we'll see what happens next year.
Okay. You did mention that the addendum regarding solicitation, since that is such an important point, for contractors and their how they operate business model wise. Can you explain that a little bit further? It sounds like that could be a problem for roofing contractors.
Yeah, so you're still allowed to door knock. There's nothing wrong with normal solicitation. But if you combine that and start getting into the realm of public adjusting, so let's say you get on and you offer some kind of incentive or something like that to obtain a free roof. There are very specific guidelines that need to be done. There's some additional contractual language that you're going to need if you're engaged in this kind of storm restoration work, if you're doing work in Florida. So there are some things that do affect you. Okay, we didn't get out 100% unscathed, but we did manage to eliminate probably 75, 80% of the worst stuff. The rest of the stuff we can live with. You just have to know how to navigate it.
All right. As usual, I would like to turn to some news on rc.com. We are in the midst of the National Safety Stand Down campaign. I was struck by a recent article we posted that showing that despite the efforts in safety by contractors over the past few years, data is showing that the workplace injuries just continue to go in the wrong direction, and contractors may actually be taking more risks given that there's more safety uh, uh, tools at their disposal. Uh, did that strike you as odd? And what is your concern, especially as a lawyer with liability on the line?
So this reflects exactly what I thought from the beginning. And obviously I'm jaded. I do OSHA defense on a daily basis, right? And let me just start by saying I think there is a role for OSHA, and OSHA does a great job. Anybody from OSHA, I love you. But the issue that I have seen is that I keep seeing these statistics on what OSHA has done, and I never believed it, right? Because I get these phone calls from contractors, especially residential contractors, that are saying, "Hey, I've got a tie off, but I've got roof stack tile. This is creating a trip hazard and a falling debris hazard and everything else." There rarely is there a connection between the actual in progress work and some of these regulations that get promulgated, right? I would like to see more of a concerted effort to understand the realities of construction. There's a happy medium. And I do think that, with some of this advanced safety, it's created a sort of a lackadaisical mentality where contractors believe they're fully tied off or their harness is going to save them. At the end of the day, you're still taking risk. And if something fails, I do think it has contributed to that. So from a liability standpoint, what do I recommend? Well, it's like I always say, every penny spent on safety is a penny well spent. And I really think it requires a combination of, office training like we're seeing now, where you get, Zoom or you get in person, whatever it might be, and field training. You've got to be able to get hands-on. You got to be able to understand what the perimeter of a roof looks like, right? You got to be able to look over that edge and go, hey, I can get hurt, right? If people don't think that there is ramifications from working on a roof, then they need to understand that, because we all know, I think all the time about the people that I know in the industry that have died falling off a roof. Okay. And it haunts me. It absolutely haunts me. And that's what I think needs to get hit home here is Yeah, you can have all the technology in the world and all the safety gear in the world and all the OSHA safety rules in the world. But at the end of the day, if you don't understand that real world danger, then you're going to have an issue, and that's one of the things I really want to hit home is the reality. When it happens to somebody, then you start going, hey, this is a real issue. You're not invincible. That lanyard isn't necessarily going to save you. You need to make sure that you're just using common sense. So, big advocate for making sure you instill a culture of safety and you really understand the real world applications of it.
Thanks for sharing that, Trent. I do want to ask you about our cover story for our May e-magazine as well. Really looked at millennial women in the industry and how they're beginning to reshape things. We featured a few from within your organization. I'm curious, what's your approach to hiring when it comes to millennials and particularly women in the industry, and how does that diversity help your company?
So, look, man, I am very, very blessed. I realized early on that I'm just not that smart, and what I try to do is hire people that are a lot smarter and better than I am. So it makes me look good, right? So, I'm really lucky to have surrounded myself with a great group of people, and I think about some of the women that we've hired recently. Lee Livniskus in consulting. A lot of our, attorneys, some additional administrative staff that we've got. And really, they add a significant amount of value and insight that otherwise I would not have. One of the things I've always sort of wanted this organization to be was to be forward thinking and progressive. And I didn't want to be like other law firms. I left that. I worked for 15 years in that stuff. I don't ever want to go back to that, right? So if this doesn't work out, like I said, I'm going to become an estimator if I can just figure out math. So, I really value the opinions that I get, from our women that we've hired, from many of our millennial hires, from many of the diverse backgrounds of people that we hire, because it helps me be a better lawyer, a better consultant, a better business owner. And I have to do that. I have to remain at the forefront of where our society is. So, it's not just marketing, it's not just branding. It has helped guide a lot of our policies, right? And it's helped transform this company from within. So I encourage anybody that's listening to this, if you're still on the fence about things like National Women in Roofing or any of the other great organizations that are out there that support diversity, get involved. Get involved. I'm fortunate enough to have learned a lot through that organization, and really feel blessed to be a part of it and to have such great people here working with me. So,
Thanks, Trent. Well, I think it's definitely one of the more exciting stories happening in roofing. And when you particularly look at the millennial group, these are employees that potentially have another decade, 2 or 3 to give the industry. So there's definitely a lot of potential there. And yeah, I'm happy to keep that conversation going.
mhm.
Trent, I really appreciate your insight today and all you do for the roofing and construction industries. Where can people find out more?
So they can go to our website, cotneycl.com, or they can always email me direct at tcotney@cotneycl.com.
All right. And while you're not visiting Trent's site, please go back to roofingcontractor.com and be sure to sign up for our new free e-magazine and e-newsletters so you can stay on top of the latest news and information impacting the industry. For our walls and ceilings audience, please also visit wconline.com for comprehensive coverage of the interior construction industry. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Hey!